Test, test. Yeah. Can we have everyone take their seats, please?
Right there, Mr. Brown.
Hi.
Yeah, so I'm done.
Before I call this meeting to order, I have one public comment for the regular meeting. We will have open comment for the truth and taxation hearing, but okay, going once, going twice, it's gone. So, okay, call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Here.
Mrs. Root?
Here.
Mr. Sawala?
Here.
Mrs. Walters?
Here.
Mrs. Galbraith is here. Mr. Albrecht?
Here. Please rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Roop, would you please read our mission statement?
Sure. Our mission statement is to empower each student to positively impact the world for a bright new future.
Okay. And with that, we will call the Truth and Taxation Law hearing to order. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Surma.
Thank you and good evening. This is our Truth and Taxation hearing for the 2019 levy that the board will be taking action on. I will let you know that it's the same information that I presented to the board back in November. Thanks, Don. And that, so none of that information has changed, but just so the board knows that and just to share that with the public, this information is in the board packet. And it is also out there publicly for the board too. So let me begin. Just some definitions that you'll see up on the screen. A couple of things. One is, as I talk about this, just so everybody, including the public, understands some of the terms I'll be using. Equalized assessed value is approximately 1/3 of the property value. It is one of the multipliers that is used when determining what your taxes will be. The tax levy is the amount of money a school district requests for property taxes in our operating funds. We are only allowed to levy in our operating funds. You'll see those listed there. The one that is not listed is our debt service, which is really about $12 million a year. The city or the county clerk determines that. We don't have any leeway on that. And it's like when you have your mortgage, that's the first thing you pay, or your rent, that's the first thing you pay. That's the same thing that is here and that. The next one is tax extension, which is a process that's used by the county clerk to calculate the tax rate, and it determines the amount of taxes to be paid by the property owner. And that also determines the amount of money that we will receive as a district. Just because we levy a certain amount, that does not mean we will get that amount. One of the, I'll say, kind of problems with the system that is in place in the state of Illinois with tax levies, you're estimating a lot of things, and you're going to see that as I go through this. But there's some estimations that have to be taken and some guesswork that is taken in some of this. The tax extension is the process that the county clerk uses, and that determines the amount of taxes that we receive. And again, I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then lastly is the tax rate. Again, it's a multiplier that's used with the property's owners equalized assessed value that calculates the amount of taxes that are paid. Okay, so those are 4 terms that I'll be using kind of throughout the presentation. There are some requirements for this. The tax extension may increase only a maximum of 5% or CPI, which last year was 1.9% of the previous year's extension, whichever is less. However, new construction, if there's any dissolving TIFs, are in addition to this requirement. If the levy is more than 5% of the previous year's extension, and again, that's the levy, that's what's requested, is more than 5%, the truth and taxation hearing must be held. That's what we're doing. However, it has been the policy of this district, no matter what that percentage is, even if it's less than 5%, is to have a truth and taxation hearing, just so the public is aware of what the levy is. And then lastly, once approved, the tax levy must be filed by the county clerk, with the county clerk by the last Tuesday of December. This year, it's the 31st of December. Usually what I do, quite honestly, is if the levy is approved tonight, I'll have that to the county clerk by the end of the week. And so that is kind of the process. The questions that are always asked when it comes to the levy is this. There's really three that I kind of focus on. How much should we levy to capture all property, which is the tax levy? If all property is captured, how much property tax revenue will be received by the district? That's the tax extension. And what is the impact on the district property owner, which is really their tax rate times their EAV? So those are three questions that I usually always pose, and hopefully we'll have answers to during this presentation. The next slide is just some historical data that you can see versus of EAV versus the tax rates throughout the last probably around 8 or 9 years, and how that has gone. So it'll kind of give you an idea. You'll see there with EAV and between 2013 and 14, kind of that real estate crash that took place where EAV went from $700 million down to $549 million on that. And then you'll see also the tax rates have increased in that also in order to capture the same amount of dollars. This slide just kind of gives you an idea of how do you create the levy and different things that you kind of look at and sometimes even estimate as you gather the data and try and determine what the levy is. So the first one up at top here is the 2018 levy extension and tax rate. So you'll see that information that is listed there, what our levy was. So again, in 2018, which was last year, this is what the levy was $44,107,500. That's what we requested. However, again, we did not get, our extension actually was $40,505,036 and that. And then the tax rate you'll see is a calculation there that the county clerk does. Now the question comes up is, well, why do you levy that much and that? And really the answer is because you're estimating things. There are so many estimates that you have to do on this, and estimates like how much will EAV grow and that you're estimating that. What is the value of new construction? You're estimating that because we don't have the final figures yet. And actually the one that gets the final figures is the county clerk, usually around March, when they determine actually what your extension is. So you're estimating those things.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So for 2018, the tax extension, say you asked for 44,000 plus, and we received 40,000 plus.
40 million.
40 million. I wish it was
Yeah.
40.
Don't say 40. Ooh.
I won't even want to pay for lunch.
No.
And CPI was a little bit over 2. So maybe you know this answer or not. So how much, given that we seek to capture new construction during that tax year, how much of this $40 million plus was percentage-wise with over the CPI? Or did we just get CPI?
No, I don't know. We did not just get CPI. And I'll tell you why, Mr. Brown. If you look down at the next one, here where it says tax increment finance districts, you'll see in 2018, UP number 3 TIF dissolved. And so that gave us an additional $5.2 million in EAV. Again, as an estimate, it gave us $5.2 million. And that is, again, new construction. So that would be over the CPI. And that the revenue that we would have received from that $5.2 million of EAV. Okay. I don't have the exact answer for that, but we did receive more than CPI. And that is because of new construction. And if memory serves me right, I believe, I can get the exact numbers from you or for you. But But I think the estimate for new construction was about $200,000. And then in addition is that TIF dissolving, that's an additional amount. So if you were to take that $5.2 million and actually multiply it by the tax rate, that'll kind of give you what we got over. So that's about $450,000 that we got over CPI.
Okay, so you had stated earlier, we were either get CPI or 5%, whichever one is less.
Yes.
Right? And you balloon the levy so you can capture new construction,
Yes.
right? And we had that in the paper. We ballooned it this.
Yes.
What was
Yes.
that percentage? What was it showing in the paper? I don't recall seeing it.
I don't know that offhand. It's in the board packet, but I don't know that
Anybody
offhand.
recall seeing that balloon levy? I don't know if Nelson-
I think it's about 11 or 12%.
Right, and that's the number that drives people crazy.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And it is difficult to understand that concept because the levy isn't the actual amount that your taxes are going to go up. And that, again, we're just kind of estimating it because we don't have all the final numbers. And so even as I kind of do these projections, I'm really estimating what I think the tax bill is going to be and the impact to the homeowner. But I will tell you right out, it's not going to be that full 10 or 12%.
Okay, and being said, we said that one of the TIFs dissolved, and we got another one that's going to dissolve from UP,
Yes.
right? A 5 million and then a 9 million. I know there was a bigger TIF, like 70 something million.
There is. That one doesn't roll off for another 3 or 4 years.
Okay. But if that big one hit us, and we got the 5% or 5% or CPI, but that big one hit us and we seek for that, we still are capped at the 5%. We can't capture all of that. That's
No, you
almost
can-
like new construction.
No, you can capture that because that's considered new construction. So that's in
So
addition
we
to the
can
cap.
capture all of the new construction, even if it goes over 5%.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
And again, just to kind of give you an example, when we balloon that year's levy,
Yeah,
that balloon is probably going to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars
that's correct.
so that we capture all of
we
that.
capture it.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. And then you'll also see, again, over on this side, kind of an estimation of equalized assessed value. This 2018 is an actual amount. However, we don't know what the 2019 EAV is going to be. So I really estimated, and I estimated at 2%, quite honestly. And then you'll see the CPI, Consumer Price Index, and that's what Mr. Brown was referring to. Those are actual numbers. So in 2018, the CPI was 2.10. For this year's levy, it's 1.9. Okay. And then you'll see down at the bottom with new construction, this number of 691,603, I get actually from the county assessor's office back in September. They give me that number. So that's probably it's probably going to be a little bit more than that. And again, that TIF number of $9 million is based on last year's value. So that will probably increase also, which means it's also important to balloon the levy because those numbers will probably increase.
And again, just for clarification, that new construction of 600, we talked about this a couple times already. The new construction for 2019 of 691,000 thereabout.
Yes.
The assessed value is going to be a third of that, like maybe 233, whatever.
Right.
But we're only going to get a percentage of that 233. So just, I don't know if you want to just clarify that. Isn't it right?
When you say we're only going to get a percentage of that, what do you mean?
Okay, whatever, we got an assessed value. The assessed value of this new construction is going to be a third of this number, right?
Yes, it should be.
Right.
Take that times the tax rate.
Take that
Times the tax
rate,
rate.
a percentage of that.
Yes.
So to say we look at an 8% tax rate and it's 200,000, so you're probably talking about 16,000 right there. That's the real number
Yes.
that the district is
Right.
gonna get.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So this is the actual levy. If you look, this is a historical look at what our levies have been. I put this chart together, but again, the final column, which is 2019, is the actual levy. We have to levy in each one of our operating funds, so that's why you'll see different amounts there. So our actual levy is going to be this number right here. That's what I'm proposing, the 47,110. Oops, hit the wrong button. Sorry. And that. This number here, this 11,992 is actually our bond and interest payment, which is our debt service payment. I've just added that in. Again, that's what the county clerk determines. We have no control over this. So this is what we actually levy on that. So my recommendation is that the levy should be 47,110,000. The next page will be an estimation of what I think the extension is going to be, or what funds I believe the district will receive. And again, you'll see this amount here of 41,912,188, and that. So that's what I believe. And again, in my best guesstimate, that's what I believe that the district will receive in tax property revenue from all of our stakeholders. Again, it's an estimation. I won't have that final number until March of 2020. And then the next part of this is the tax rate, what I think the tax rate is going to be. And that tax rate, you'll see I'm estimating at 8.5422. So if a homeowner looks at their equalized assessed value and multiplies it by that tax rate, they'll be able to know what their tax bill is going to be, at least for Crete Monee School District. Now, there's a lot of other jurisdictions that are on your tax bill, but this at least is for the Crete Monee School District. This is just kind of a historical look at the blue bars is the tax levies that we have, and then the gold bars are what the extensions were and that. So I just show it just to say that the board has always ballooned their levy to make sure they capture all of the dollars. And I think that is real important, especially when you have a lot of TIFs in your area, because those can, you don't want to lose that, because if you don't get it, when it rolls off the books, you can never go back and get it.
I'm sorry, can you go back to the rates? I
Sure.
think things have changed out there a little bit, I guess, as far as the rates.
Okay.
So is it fair to say that we are maxed out as far as our tax rate, with the exception of transportation, or did things change? We cannot increase if we wanted to get more money, or
Well,
even if we
yeah,
go to
you're
revenue.
capped on your rates, but you're capped on your rates based on that CPI and new construction calculation and that.
But I know, with the rates and
Mhm.
the EAV, the assessed value, that's going to determine the taxes and all of that for individual property owners.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, this rate, if whatever reason that you have the balancing act, if we want X amount of dollars, if we raise the rate, we got to lower the EAV, and vice versa, right?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
at some point, you cannot raise the rate.
Right. At some point, you
And are
cannot
we
raise the
maxed
rate.
out?
We're
Are
we're
we-
actually not maxed out by our rates yet, and that.
I thought we were. If you can clarify that, you don't have to have that answer, but I don't know with the new evidence base and all of
Yeah,
that,
no,
did
we're
they
not
change things?
maxed out. We're not maxed out yet. We still have some flexibility because the ed fund now does not have a cap on it,
Okay, so
and
that's
so
what
we are
changes.
able to.
Okay,
So when I get the extension, one of the issues that has happened in the past is that the education fund always had a cap on it, that you could not go over a certain amount from a tax rate standpoint, and that transportation did not.
that's
So
what I'm saying. And
right.
if
So
we
a lot
needed
of
to get-
districts would put a lot of money into transportation, and then you would transfer that out into the ed fund. So if you were to look at our fund balances, actually, in transportation, there is a large fund balance in there. And at some point this year, probably, I'll be coming to the board to move some of that money into the education fund. Now, and this happened once they did the new evidence-based funding model, they took away the cap on the ed fund. So
Yeah.
now, but there, like Mr. Brown is saying, there's a balancing act you have to do. So once I get the extension, I look to see if I can move some of the money that we may get in transportation automatically over into the ed fund and that. So there is that balancing act that is played there.
Excellent.
Yes.
So they took the cap off the ad fund.
Yes.
And at one point, we only had the cap on the transportation.
We did not have a cap on we did not have a cap. Yeah. Which makes no sense to me,
Right.
but that's the state of
what it
Illinois.
was.
So I do.
Okay, so now you're saying we do not have a cap on the ed fund as well as the transportation.
Yes, we do not have a cap on either of those. Yes.
Great. Thank you, sir. I'm sorry for the interruption.
No, not a problem. And that. Let me move forward a little bit here. So again, this is a chart that I've put together, and please understand this is an estimate, my best guess estimate on the impact to the homeowner. And so you'll see that I have 4 different values of a home: 100,000, 150, 200, and 250,000. And you'll see the impact and the increase. So on a $100,000 home, I'm estimating that the increase to the homeowner on the Crete Monee portion of your tax bill is going to be $18.83. All right. So you'll see that. And then you'll see also the other values that are there and the impact to the homeowner on those values and on your tax bill. And again, please keep in mind that this is just the Crete Monee school district's portion of your tax bill. There's a lot of other jurisdictions that you have on your tax bill. So lastly, this is just kind of a summary page to kind of give you what the levy is, what I'm estimating as the extension, and then finally the estimated tax rates along with the impact to the homeowner on the far right side. And that. Any questions?
Do we have either of the tax assessors from either?
I have not. I would just tell you I didn't have an opportunity to contact
Okay.
them.
We haven't had any, Dr. Coglin, any questions from taxpayers regarding, why are their taxes going up and all of that? We had a lot of finger pointing between the districts and the townships at one point. It happens when the bill comes out.
Every time.
It happens when the bill comes out. So if we can continue to socialize,
Sure.
where we are with the tax rates and all of that, it's a two-part, it's two sides to the story here.
Right. Yeah, and I
The
think one of
assessment
the
on the homes as well as.
I think one of the positive things we've done also, Mr. Brown, is there are a lot of TIFs in UP, and we've developed that relationship very well. I know Dr. Kara has worked very hard with that, with the mayor over there and a village manager, just so that we're in contact, so we know what's going on, and to assist them any way we can, or they can assist us in that. So that has been a positive relationship that we've developed with them, along with the other communities, along with Monee and Park Forest and Crete too. But there are quite a few TIFs over there, So we just want to make sure that the proper work is done when they roll off. That's all.
You say quite a few TIFs. There's, I think, if my memory serves me right, our school district, the TIFs that's in our school district equals a third of all the TIFs in the county of Will.
I believe you are right. I believe
So
we're
I
the
think-
second highest after Chicago
Yeah.
with TIFs, to be honest with you. So,
So-
yeah.
So
But
you
you're right.
also-
There is a big one that's rolling off
would
in
help.
about 3 or 4 years. That'll be a huge benefit to the district.
Okay. So, President, this is open.
Now
To
we
the
can open up
public,
to
right?
the public for comment.
Okay.
Is there any public comment on the tax levy? Okay, there's no public comment. We will close the Truth and Taxation Law hearing. And next we'll move on to regular public comment. And we have one tonight regarding the Ed Foundation, update with the foundation from Jamie Hopalong Healy.
Now, if I would have said that, you would have slapped me. Right?
I may get
Hi.
it later. So.
I just wanted to update everybody about the foundation. Things are moving a little slower than originally planned. We are official with the state now as a foundation. However, we just heard from the attorneys today that because the 990Ns were not filed for so many years, the IRS has completely revoked non-for-profit status. So we have to start from the very beginning. We can't reinstate. So things are a little slow, but that's okay. We're going to get there. It's not a problem. But in the meantime, we are working really hard to get our name out there and to just get people aware that we're coming back. We had our first fundraiser last weekend during Crete Country Christmas. It was a chili cook-off. Thank you for announcing last time. It was really great for something that we only had a few weeks to kind of put together. We raised over $500 in a few years, or a few hours. We had a lot of people come through. We got a lot of positive feedback, and people are excited to do it next year. So hopefully now that we know we're going to do this, we can plan ahead and get it out there earlier and get more people there. On behalf of all of us, Ms. Roop, we want to thank you for being there, for trying all the chili and casting your vote and bringing your son. We really appreciate seeing you there. And I think that's pretty much it for now. Our next meeting is going to be sometime in January. So our next steps are to plan more fundraisers. So we're just going to keep going. So Merry Christmas.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, we have administrative updates, and we're going to move 7B up first. Update on superintendent committees.
We've got two committees, our finance and facility committees, that have been working very hard to discuss a lot of our issues regarding our facility plan. I've invited two members of both of our committees to come and give just an update to the board. We do have all of our minutes on our website, so we do encourage people to please take a look at those so they can keep up to date with that. Right now, I have Reverend Hunt, who's going to be coming up.
What do you want to do the facility first?
I think so.
Thank you. What do you need? Good evening, everyone. I'm representing the Finance Committee, and we had our last meeting December 5th, I believe, and we were presented with the option with a resolution by the Facilities Committee for a building for our administrative and grounds, a building and grounds. And we were to recommend a solution for that in terms of how we would finance that. One of the things that we looked at was, again, the bond sale and referendum. And one of the things we came up, talked about was the reimbursement solution. Reimbursement solution is a board action that gives the option to reimburse itself for capital project expenditures. And so we talked about that. We also talked about extending a stretch of the bond from 20 to 30 years, which would require state approval. And so we've asked our superintendent to reach out to our state representative, Thad Jones. I believe there's some meetings that are scheduled. And so we hope to have that done. There is a precedent for that. Some school districts have done that in the past, so we don't anticipate a problem. And we've had preliminary conversations with Representative Young, and so they're in favor of that. So there is a meeting on December 19th for that. And we made a decision to use the fund balance to pay for any of the short-term capital projects, as I talked about. And so there is a property that is that was chosen by the Facilities Committee, and it's in Crete. We've looked at that and we determined that we want to move forward with that. So we've asked. We're in the process of getting an appraisal. Do we have an appraisal? Not yet. Okay. So that's pretty much it. Do you have any questions for me?
And you are correct, that meeting will be taking place this Thursday with our state representatives.
Yes. So Well, thank you very much. It's a very thorough update.
Is that meeting gonna, you say, taking place with who?
Representative DeLuca.
And
Ed
who?
Jones and Bob Lewis, Buchanan, and President Albrecht and myself.
Okay. Okay. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Now we're going to hear from Pastor Kevin DeVries.
Thank you. Good evening, board and community members. It's good to be here. We've been meeting for the past few months with our facilities committee, really just starting to get at first just an understanding of the facility needs that our district has and familiarizing ourselves with that. Upon that, we really came to a consensus agreement to recommend the first step in addressing those facility needs to be to take down the sixth grade center. With that, we had a lot of discussion on, do we just take down the sixth grade center and the dome, or separate the two? But we came ultimately to the consensus agreement after a lot of discussion and together that the way forward we would recommend is to take down the first step in addressing our facility needs would be take down the sixth grade center and the dome at the same time. Then that moves us down to forward to the initial step. To move forward on this initial step of taking down the sixth grade center and the dome, we have to figure out a home for our maintenance department, because right now they're in the sixth grade center at that property. We discussed options of leasing property in University Park to house the facilities or the maintenance department, but ultimately felt that was not in the best interest of the district to go that way. So then we turned our attention to looking at property that we own or property that we could purchase in order to build a proper facility to house the maintenance department. We looked at properties throughout the community: University Park, Park Forest, Monee, Crete. And after looking at all those different options throughout the district, we recommended the consideration to purchase the property that Reverend Hunt spoke about to the district, to the board, so that we could then purchase that property. And we believe that would be able to house the maintenance department both now and into the future. So that's really kind of the consent update of what we've been talking about. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. So.
No.
As we move forward, these are certainly updates from our communities, but before certainly any action is taking place, when we bring these things before the board, they'll have an opportunity to have more of a discussion as we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay, next up, 7A, water report update.
As you remember, Governor Romer, back in January 2017, passed a law asking for school districts to conduct water testing in all facilities. Any facilities that was built prior to 1987. Our district was certainly compliant in making change that request. The state requires any samples in schools that exceed 5 parts per billion. Schools must notify parents. Our district wasn't compliant with that. During that time period, we went ahead and posted our results as well. Over the summer, the district learned there was some water issues in University Park, and so the district went ahead and recommissioned all of our buildings to be tested again for that water. So we're going to share with the board those results. And where we're at with that. As you recall, we did implement a water mitigation plan, which continued to supply bottled water, drinking water to our schools, and even a couple of our buildings we provided hand washing stations. Our results have come in, and what we have found with our results at this time is there is a presence of lead in all of our facilities that we did test. The mitigation plan that we had already put in place, which was turning off all the drinking fountains, bringing the bottled water, and so forth, we continue to do. So nothing has really changed. We are putting together an action plan to replace many of the faucets, just drinking fountains, sinks, and so forth. The plan really focuses on consumptions first, moving to sinks, and then lastly to hand sinks such as sinks and labs. So those are going to be our plan moving forward. This report will be available on our website tomorrow, so that you can take a look at that, but then where each of the samples was taken and the results of that water was. Also, at our last board meeting, the board had asked for me to reach out to Aqua Water to find out what was going on at the community level, and so I did reach out to Craig Blanchett, president of Aqua Water, to maybe come out to us and give a high-level overview of what's going on in the community. So, unless you have any questions, I might invite Craig Blanchett to come out. We appreciate you being here.
Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to come in and give you an update on where we stand with things in University Park. I'm Craig Blanchett, the president of Aqua Illinois. I also have with me tonight our environmental compliance manager, Melissa Cahoon, and new supervisor, Corey Jackson. So we appreciate the opportunity to be heard this evening. So I'll give you a little bit of an update. I think, as you all know, Aqua covers the water system in University Park. I see some familiar faces. And we have two schools, and we have Coretta Scott King, and then the middle school on the south side of town. And so first off, I want to thank you for your patience as we work through our issues in University Park, and in fact, all the community's patience as we work through issues in University Park. And our customers continue to be our top priority, and you are a customer. So we're here to give you an update. So we continue to make progress with our water system in University Park. The first, indication of samples coming back with elevated levels of lead was on June 13th. And we almost immediately, within 2 days, in fact, by June 15th, had implemented a new treatment protocol, a new treatment process in University Park. In the time since we did that, and the time we've been working in the community, we've also had laboratories at Virginia Tech and also at a laboratory called Cornwell Engineering, which is one of the nation's leading water chemistry laboratories, running similar tests on different pieces of pipe we extracted from University Park to see if, in fact, the treatment method that we implemented was the best treatment method. And I'm pleased to say here, within the last couple of weeks, we've got that report back from both laboratories, and they both conclude that the treatment process implemented on June 15th is, in fact, the most efficient and quick and effective, more importantly, treatment process for our customers. So that's good news. That means that what we did was right in getting it changed the process, and that there isn't any more expedient manner of resolving this issue. So that's good.
Excuse me, can you repeat that last comment? There's no more, but no.
It's the most expedient manner to be resolving the issue. Mhm.
The action that you took.
Correct. That's exactly right.
On June 15th.
Correct. That's exactly right. So today, with the process that we implemented. Now, when we first started this process out, about 43% of our compliance sample sites in University Park fell below the action level, okay? Really 90% is the EPA regulatory threshold for success, right? Is if 90% of the sample sites come back, then it means the treatment's effective. We only had 43. But in the time since we've implemented this new treatment process, we've increased from 43 up to 80. We're right around 80% of our samples now coming in below 15 parts per billion. So it shows that the treatment is working within the system. We have 84 sample sites in the community, various places. Those are all submitted and filed with EPA. They're very specific sites. And Melissa goes to those places regularly and takes samples and meets with customers and talks to them about that. In addition to those 84 sites, we also have open to all customers in the entire system. If they'd like to have their samples conducted by us, lead samples, tested, water samples from their home, that we'll do that. And we've been doing that regularly every month. We've taken hundreds of samples within the system.
No charge for them?
No charge. Free samples, free
Free
testing.
samples at our schools as well?
We've done samples at school.
At the schools.
Yep, we've done samples before, working with the staff very closely, and done early on some sample results.
And we also have an independent firm taking samples as well. How does those two samples jive with each other?
Well, it's been a while since we've done some, because you've been doing some on your own through IDPH and that, right?
So we're not comparing, we're not looking at one another's data and comparing them.
Well, we looked at our data as, you know, sources that we were looking at.
And I think we should partnership and,
Mr. Brown, we haven't compared because, as Greg said, the samples from them were taken a while ago, and now we have ours that were taken in September.
I thought we were taking continuous samples to train the data, to train the numbers, right? You just took a.
We're taking them in the University Park at our compliant sample sites.
But we have two facilities, the school district and University Park.
Mhm.
The sampling rate or whatever you're taking for the residents and businesses in University Park,
Mhm.
are you doing the same for our schools?
We stand ready to sample whatever you'd like to
No,
sample,
that's
but
not,
I'm
that's
not.
not my,
Yeah,
are
we're
you
not.
doing it, presently doing it?
Yeah, we're not doing it right now, no.
Why not?
Because we-
Why not?
Because we requested the Department of Health to come in and do the sampling.
I think the question is, are either of our schools in University Park part of your sampling, your ongoing sampling?
No, they're not compliant sample sites. Compliant sample sites, they have to be very specific. They have to be homes and very select businesses. Having said that, we've offered to any home or business or public agency in University Park that we were happy to come in and do sampling for free. And I think Melissa has worked very closely with staffing doing that. And I understand that the school is under different regulations than Aqua is through the Department of Public Health, whereas we're regulated by the Illinois EPA. Having said that, we're happy to help if we can. In our customer samples in November, all customer samples taken in November, randomly selected by customers who've called and wanted their water sampled, 100% of them come back with levels of below 15. So it's very good signs of progress. I couldn't have said that 2 months ago, right? So we know the treatment's working, and we know that it's working out. 100% of them are coming back below.
Am I on? Am I? Okay, great. Okay, so we're saying, and I'm not gonna, because I've already beat this one, but what I'm asking is this question,
Mhm.
because there's still discrepancies and they come in at 100% at different times. If a person is running the water, you can get a different, but I think what Board Member Brown was asking, is there a comparison between results, and since you're not doing it in the school, there can be no real comparison for us to look at our number versus what numbers you have in the school. And I know that there's still issues around that, but I am surprised that we are not looking at the school, considering the devastation in University Park and those homes in that particular area that are affected, of which, you know, both schools fall in that particular area. So I would, you know, like to see us at least, you know, take a look and see what those numbers look like at the school, because we've got our children in there.
Mhm.
And that should bring concern. And then I would like to see a comparison based on what the school district finds based in comparison to what you have there. I'm just surprised that we didn't bother to check the schools.
Well, we did check the schools, working with staff. We actually did a full inspection of the schools back in summer. I think Crete Scott King, we found no lead, indication of lead inside the building, right? And then the other one, we found, you know, some lead solder. We did take sampling. We did work with staff to take sampling. But I think if you're doing it through Illinois Department of Public Health and that's your regulatory agency, I think you are doing the right thing. Having said that, if you like us.
Excuse me, hold on. Slow down just a little bit.
Huh?
You threw a statement out there, but it
I
was.
can hear you.
I said, slow down just a little bit. You threw
Mhm.
a question out there, and I just want it validated. There was a sample taken in September of this year at CSK, Coretta Scott King, and it came back with no parts per million of lead, or an acceptable 50 parts per million or below of lead. Is that a true statement? We found no issues?
No, there were issues. So let me clarify a couple of things here, because I think we're getting mixed up. Our regulatory commission is the Illinois Department of Public Health, as Greg had mentioned in that. So our philosophy was, we wanted to bring in our regulatory commission to do our testing, which was a third party outside of Aqua Illinois doing that. I didn't want Aqua Illinois doing that, so people didn't think, and again, it has to do with perception, that something was skewed because they're doing the testing. So we had them come in, we had the Illinois Department of Health come into all of our schools, and do testing. And if you remember, prior to that, we shut off all the drinking fountains, hand washing machines and all of that as a proactive measure to just play it safe. Without knowing what the test was going to be, we wanted to do that, and we made that decision. Okay. Then they came in, and that's where Dr. Kara has just shared with you some of the results of that. And there were some high levels. Now, here's what I will say. Was that caused, and this is in a form of question, was that caused by the water coming in from Aqua? Or is that because of some of the fixtures that we have in the facility? I think has to do with a lot of the fixtures. And it's not just because Greg is standing here, but there's a lot of fixtures we have. I'll give you an example. A lot of our drinking fountains that we have in our building have old soldered joints and that. So again, the goal is to find out those areas and to use them because they're our regulatory commission, because I believe their protocol is a little bit more severe than what Aqua Illinois' protocol would be in doing some of that testing too. And that. So that's why we determined to bring them in. So testing has been done at all of our schools. And that we have not compared it to what the results were that when Greg did it though. But because it's going to be difficult because I don't know what their protocols were. And I don't know if there's a similar protocol between the Illinois Department of Public Health and what Aqua Illinois did.
The only thing I can say is I think we have to, as a school district, go that route because in my industry in HVAC, when I do a commercial job at the end, I have to hire a third-party test and balance company because they won't, not that they don't trust me, but there is a possibility that when you go in there, you know, are they going to believe with what I say at the end of the day that there's so many, each diffuser has so many CFM? I have to hire a third party so that there's no bias.
Oh, I agree.
And
I agree with
you. We did because the other thing is, I think by what, July, August, I don't know where don't take this the wrong way, but I don't know where the trust was with Aqua. So I think we have to hire a third party.
Oh, I agree.
To make sure that we are doing the right thing for the kids.
And I agree with you 100%, but it doesn't take away the fact that the more data we have, the better to compare. So by Aqua doing their due diligence, taking data, and we have our independent person taking data, I think that helps more than hurts.
I'm sorry.
But let me just,
I'm sorry.
board member, real quick. I just want to make sure I understand again. I don't know what's going on per se. I do not live in University Park, but I understand that one of the big failure modes here when you guys implemented the chemistry, the chemicals into the system, the water system, it caused the lead to come out of the solder of the pipes, the copper pipes, right? Is that a true statement?
Yeah, the water itself has no lead. It's the
I know
lead from
the water
inside.
is the solder.
Correct.
The solder has a percentage of lead to join the copper pipes to the fixtures.
Correct.
And we're saying that that's kind of what's being released from the solder itself, the lead, into the water. And we're saying we have fixtures that require soldering. And we're saying that whatever lead we see right now is from the fixtures. Lead being released from the fixture. So it's the same. So that's systemic. That's throughout the whole University Park. And then I understand, but this is no problem of yours. We have lead throughout our schools here in Crete as well, but that's not your issue. So I guess when you give these numbers, you said, you know, you got 80% that's coming back, 50 parts per million or
15,
less.
under 15.
How much?
Under 15.
Is that the magical number?
15 parts per billion, whereas your school district's 5.
So it's 5.
Yeah, yours is 5.
So our school district is 5. Residential is 15.
Everybody else in the world is 15, yes.
Okay. So at what point would you declare that you have conquered this? When you say 100%, where everything is coming back 15%, 15 parts per million or less in University Park?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's not up to me. That's up to Illinois EPA, right? So we continue to
it's
work
not up-
very closely with them. Yeah, we continue to work very closely with them. In a normal situation where you're coming in and testing a community when there hasn't been an issue, like other systems we'd test throughout the state where there hasn't been an issue, if you hit 90% of the sample sites achieving less than 15, you meet EPA compliance because someone could have something in their house. They could have disturbed their plumbing. They could have done something that impacted the samples other than the water quality. In this case, clearly that that didn't happen, right?
So we're saying the fix for this right now, from both of you guys, I guess, for our two schools and the residents in University Park, is change the fixtures. Is that the fix?
Well, the fix is the chemical treatment we put in place, because it is coating the pipes. And the key here is to using the water and running the water, right? And we found, and we've done thousands of samples in the entire community, that the homes that use water regularly and use the most water are the ones that tend to get the lower levels faster.
But the higher water bill.
Well, we're not charging for any water.
Oh, you're not?
No, and the school's not getting charged for any water currently.
Okay, until the problem is solved, all
Well,
right?
it's a month-to-month decision, but
Oh.
I think the answer is we should be flushing all through those now because the treatment is what will solve the issue. I mean, there's millions of homes throughout America that have lead solder, lead service lines, lead all over the place. But
But
if
they
there's-
didn't use this chemical probably to release it, take the lead out of.
But if they have an effective treatment, right? If the treatment is effective and it coats the pipes like we are doing now, then it's not an issue. So I wouldn't recommend changing all the fixtures in your entire school. That's not really cost prohibitive. I would say run your water and let the treatment do what it's supposed to do. And then follow your results with your Illinois Department of Public Health to ensure.
But that is not our mitigating plan.
Well, yeah. So let me say this, and Greg and I may disagree a little bit on this, in that my goal would be try and replace all of our fixtures. Now, I will share this with the board, and I wasn't going to share this, but I'll share this with the board in that I just found out that there is a $50,000 maintenance grant that the state of Illinois allows us to apply for matching funds. So Keith and I have already met on this, and our goal is to replace all of our drinking fountains in our schools with new drinking fountains that have lead filters on them that could be paid, half of that could be paid by the state of Illinois. And that, so we're working on that right now. The deadline for that is, I believe, February 4th. We've already started that process. We'll be putting in an application. There's $44 million available. Each district is only allowed $50,000. So we estimate that cost to replace all of those with LK drinking fountains that are also bottle filling ones with lead filters on them. We estimate that that's probably going to be somewhere in the maybe $80,000 to $90,000 range. So while it would cost the district some money, I think it is a good first step in doing that. If the facility committee decides to, let's say, get rid of a building or something like that, or demolish, we can always take those fountains out and use them in a new building too, so they wouldn't go to waste and that. But that's kind of our goal. And then again, I think we look at areas that we may need to replace some faucets in that too, like in our kitchens. We may want to replace some faucets in that. So we're looking at that and staying proactive with that.
Ms. Mitchell, did you have one more
I
comment?
do, and then I'll wrap it up with this one, and I'll let it go. But I want to be very clear, because we're accepting responsibility on an unknown in terms of our equipment. And so we can't really say that, is what I'm saying, because the chemical that was used in there was the thing that actually impacted the system in University Park. And what I asked for was just an update from the water company, because you and I have already had all of these conversations, and I don't want to rehash it for this body here because it's already been said. But moving forward, I just would like to know, because this timeline now for us in University Park has been extensive, but it also impacts the children that are coming through the school. And so for me to have a comfort level based on what I know has happened in University Park, I want to make sure, because this didn't just end up in regulatory body, it did, and it went up to the top echelon, even to a state's attorney filing suit against it. So it's a serious issue for us, and it's not just with our plumbing. There were chemicals that put in that affected the equipment in University Park, making the water not feasible for drinking. And if you say that we can go into our houses and just continue to run water to get satisfaction, I want to have what I had when I walked into this village 30 years ago. which meant that I can turn on a faucet and I can have, it was well watered then, but we're paying far more for services that we're not getting in University Park and in the school district at this point in time. So all I'm asking for is a reality check. So when you come, I understand all of the conversations that are being had. What I want to know is where we're at in the timeline and how much further are we looking before we move toward completion. And if that's not going to happen, to just really just have an honest conversation with this body and any other body, because it's gone on for quite some time. And the fact that we did not consider the school is problematic, even though we are bound by law to do it with that. But we don't even have a comparison, and our numbers are coming back and they are showing lead. So we can't say we're at 100% when our current documents do not say that. So that's all I'm saying. So all I'm asking from you is if you could at least come and update this body as to where we are with the water, so that at least when we're looking at data, we understand what we're looking at and what kind of timelines that we're looking for and towards resolution. And if there's not going to be resolution, then even at that point in time, then we need to be able to make decisions based on the information that we're given. So that's all I'm asking. I already know all of the history.
Yeah, I understand.
Right.
I understand, for
And
sure.
We've had these
We've talked,
conversations.
yes.
Yeah.
I would just say this before I step back, is that we have a website dedicated, and you've probably already seen my website, but for those that haven't, it's called waterfactsil.com. And I would encourage you to go there. We put all of our sample results, all of our compliance samples, all those are posted on there, all the results, because we want to be very transparent. We want people to know what we're finding in the community. And I think you can see the progress there. There's a bar chart. There's all kinds of information there. There's also communications we send out to the community. So feel free to take a look at it. And if there's more collaboration needed, we're happy to do that with staff.
Well, the only thing, Ken, that I don't know what's all that's going on behind the scenes, but I hear you working collaboratively with us as a team, and that's fine and dandy. But I do not want to absorb, and I'm sure probably every board member up here do not want to absorb the cost of mitigating this and fixing this if we don't have to. If it's a legal responsibility on the part of Aqua, so be it. They should take that and run with it from a legal point of view. So I understand we may receive a grant and we may not, but we're not a wealthy district, so to speak, to be going out there dishing out dollars. So we didn't cause this problem, but we will work together to make it go away. But you guys got the bucks.
Okay. Well, thank you for the update.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, bus referral update.
Yes, we asked Dr. Clark to share an update on our referrals, and she has a story for you.
What's going on in your cabinet?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm okay. Thank you. So last month I gave you November's information. So right now you're going to have a December, but as we go through it, you will see a comparison in the month. So September, October, and November is what we have being reported right now. And you will see that the bus referrals are going down. The high school is up. The middle school is up and down. I will tell you that the middle school administration has really been addressing these. They've been doing some random bus videos. They've been working with the students, contacting families, and we've even had some bus suspensions. But for the most part, you can see the bus referrals are decreasing, except for that in that one school.
Is there any kind of, and I know you said that they're working, is there any kind of plan for the middle school?
Well, right,
Meaning-
go ahead.
Sorry,
Go ahead. No, go ahead. What's your question?
No, meaning, I know they seem to be going down, but then, they tripled in December.
November.
November, not going up a little bit,
Mhm.
but
Can I throw a little something in here?
Go ahead.
I happened to see Kokona out in the hall when I got here, and I think they're really, really focused on the referrals coming in and dealing with them and getting this taken care of. Because I was speaking to her about our last week's meeting, and I think they're like really tuned in. So the referrals are pouring in so that they can address it and they can fix it, is what she was telling me. So she's asking for this information to be given so that she can correct it.
That
So
is
I
correct.
just had a little sidebar with her when I first got here, and that's what she was telling me,
So-
because that number was so exorbitant.
But don't forget also, they're doing a lot of random pulling tapes, like they're writing some of these referrals as well. So they're not just getting referrals from the drivers, they're creating referrals based off of videos that they are seeing. So it's going up because they are dealing with the situation.
So it's possible that the prior months were underreported.
Correct.
I'm not going to say it was even underreported. I just know that they're doing more. So if the bus driver, for example, only wrote 5 of those 27 referrals, administration is looking at the videotapes. They wrote the other 22 is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So you're going to see that fluctuation because they may not get a referral from the bus driver themselves. And you now even have students reporting, which is awesome because we're teaching them, if you see something, say something. So we're trying to get everybody actively involved to make sure that we have safe transportation to and from.
Dr. Clark, do we know how many of the referrals are repeat, incidences?
No, but I can get that information for you.
It would be interesting to me to see if, because we are concentrating, we're limiting how many are repeat, like does Johnny act up 3 times a week and now he's down to 1? Are those all like one time and we're working it out, or are we still having issues with a select group?
I can find that
I
out
would be
for you.
curious just if you get a chance to see that information.
I'll find out and put that in the FYI.
Thank you.
Great.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Next up, Spring Health Fair.
This is just a real quick update to let the board and the community know. We are beginning to look at having a spring out there. We're beginning to look at that. Dr. Clark and Ms. Bellotti are looking into that. As you know, we have a support day in August where local dentists will come out, those who do haircuts and so forth. We're looking to have one again this spring, which could include flu shots. So anyway, I just want to let people know we're beginning to work on that, and more information will come.
Okay, thank you. Next, board updates. In November, all of the board members this year attended what we call the Triple I Conference. It's the, for us, the board members, it's the conference for the Illinois Association of School Boards. It's in Chicago, and thought it'd be good for all of us to take the opportunity, take a few minutes to talk about what we got out of the conference this year. And so I'll start with Janine, and then if you can be our timer. We said limit 3 minutes. So after that, you're crack the whip. Okay.
Okay, so this is my 5th year going to the Triple I. I always try to take sessions on Friday because many times those are very good information. However, this session was disturbing to me. Our first one, quite a few members in this group took a safety and security one. And unfortunately, you don't get to know much about the session before you take it. And much of the information was repeat information we've been given by the previous year's presenters presenting the same thing this year. So it was kind of a disappointment seeing as security and safety are such a main point right now. My second one was board governance with transparency, and it was supposed to be an advanced class. Mr. Sawalish was in this class with me, and it was very basic. So again, both of the classes I took on Friday were disappointing. So I just happened to go to the IASB, what do you call it, their little booth they had, or their room. And the man who was in charge of the conference was there. So they told me to go ahead and talk to him. So I told him both of my concerns, and he was floored. He said, we really vet these people, and I'm really sorry to hear that. And he was not happy at all. And I said, these are really important topics. So hopefully there were other people in there talking and saying things were happening. I'm hoping that IASB paid some attention to some of the things, because a lot of the sessions I did go to were almost exact word for word repeats from the year before, especially in security. I know that some of the other members of the team were going to different ones. We were trying to split them up because I am on the safety and security team, and many of us were trying to go to different sessions and were disappointed. So we did let them know that we expect better next year. However, some of the other classes I took on equity and just panel sessions were great. I think some of those 10 and 15-minute panel sessions are the way to go, and I've never done that before. But I was so frustrated by the real sessions that I started going to them, and I'd run into Mrs. Mitchell and we'd be trading off. And so to me, some of those panel sessions where you got 10 minutes of blast really were very informative. So all in all, I think the conference is a good way to get information out. I just think that IASB is overwhelmed and they need to get themselves back in a better place where they were. So all in all, I did learn some things.
Good. Thank you. Want to keep going around this way? Sure.
Okay, so this is my first conference.
No.
There we go. Okay, now I'm really close. Okay. So this was my first conference, and I ended up with the growing concerns with the vaping and the legalization of marijuana. I thought this was a very important topic and class to attend. So Mrs. Roop and I attended that one. One of the things, yeah, right. Okay. One of the things that I was completely aware of and probably actually shocked is that the vaping mechanisms, devices, can come in all kinds of things. And I was unaware of that. So they can use pens, watches, flash drive, the USB drives, backpacks. Okay. Which to me is like really, really kind of scary because these kids can actually be vaping right in the classroom. I know myself when I turn on the TV and I see these kids in hospital beds and stuff, it's obviously a very serious concern. And I think it's one that we need to take very seriously. Unfortunately, like I said, the kids, they are not aware of the dangers with it. It's just a social thing for them, but they don't understand just how serious it is. Some of the statistics were, it says as of 2019, there have been 2,051 related cases of lung disease and 39 deaths. So that's pretty serious there. It says the use of marijuana during the adolescent years has permanent effects on the development of the brain, and it's also linked to higher dropout rates and lower educational achievement. So in Colorado, they've also had, since the legalization of marijuana, they've had 151% increase in traffic fatalities and 52% increase in ER visits. So with that being said, I think it is something we really need to look at very seriously and provide ways of going at this more proactively than reactively. And I think we need to get the education out there for the students and for the parents and get a good handle on this as it's a growing concern. So that was my class.
And just to add, you talked about the deaths. Illinois has the highest amount of vaping deaths.
Really?
Right now. So I wrote down the most vaping deaths of any state right now.
Okay. Mr. Brown?
Oh, I enjoy my stay at the conference. First time I've been there in several years. I got a chance to be in a class with you, President, and Bill as well. I did a lot of talking in between sessions in the hallways. So I just stay focused on a lot of the financial classes, the bonds, and one good class that I attend dealt with how to construct facilities and things of that nature if a referendum were to fail. So I pretty much stayed with the panel after the class for about a half hour, just one-on-one with me and the panel. So I promise you I would not exceed that clock, okay? But I do challenge this board that we take our good ones and we talk a little bit more about it in the committee as a whole and try to implement one or two. that was one of the things that kind of shied me away from these conferences. A lot of good things, we talk about them, and we take no action on them. So maybe we can get maybe one, and drive home, whatever that be. So that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
So I stay focused on, again, I was, from the time I get up Saturday morning, bright and early, with the class from that time until it was over, and as well as Sunday, shut it down. So,
Great.
okay.
Thank you. Bill?
Well, it was my first conference as well, and I figured I'd soak it up like a sponge and load up. And I started Friday morning with a school of finance. Ken, I'm not going to take your job. There's so many facets to the school of finance that I don't care how many classes you go to, trying to understand all of it is crazy. After that Friday afternoon, Jeannie and I went to Balancing Effective Governance, and that was a little different. I mean, instead of it turning into a learning session, it was a Q&A, and so there wasn't much learning there, but at least you're right. At least hopefully IASB will kind of vet through that a little bit. But on Saturday, I figured to start somewhere new, and I wound up going to the general session at 8:30. And there was a guy that apparently played for the Chicago Bears. And the guy standing next to me goes, I've been a season ticket holder for 31 years. I don't even know who this is. In his first game as a rookie, he got hurt. That's why no one knows of him, and he had to retire. But he was very inspirational. I think anybody in administration or, superintendent, kind of that role that has a day-to-day operation kind of thing, would have taken a lot from that. I honestly took a lot for my personal business. I learned from him on how to implement stuff. It was really good. And then after that, I went to a couple bond classes, and believe it or not, Bob from PMA was putting on the second one I went to. So all in all, it was a good experience, just trying to kind of vet through some information.
Ms. Mitchell?
Well, everyone knows this was my first one, and I went through class by mistake, but it was great. On board governance, the ladies at the desk thought that I should be in this class, so I just acquiesced, and I did go to the board governors, and it was a great class. What I learned was the role of the board, the interactions between the board president, the superintendent, and each other, but also our responsibility to the community to engage and involve. And one of the other classes that I went dealt with innovation and actually how do we deliver on our education system to the community and understanding our audience and understanding the conflicts that may be in different areas of the school district. And so it really was about engaging innovation, understanding where we're at, understanding the type of lifestyles that we're dealing with in certain areas. And so it gave me a lot of food for thought. It did give a lot of food for how to engage communities, and especially when you're dealing, I read something earlier today about when you're dealing with dysfunction within the family units or trauma within the family units and communities. So it was a great experience. Also interaction with a lot of other people that as I was trying to get to different workshops and classes, there were so many people that I actually knew that were stopping me every step along the way.
You did
all
your entertainment in the halls.
Right, but I did fulfill my obligation to learn in the process. So it was a great experience.
Great. Thank you, Brenda.
Okay, well, I also enjoyed some general assemblies. Like Bill said, the one with the one-time Chicago Bear, it was a lot about goal setting. And what I liked from that too is that you really have to have a plan B, because if he didn't, his life would have been over the first game when he got hurt. But now he's a public speaker and seems somewhat successful. I went to an earlier general assembly for the Illinois Association of Christian Administrators. And I like they used a Bible verse from Proverbs 11:25, part of it that says, whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. And the pastor that was speaking, he was from Chicago West Bible Church, and he also works with Prison Fellowship. He had a bad experience in school, some trauma in his life, like you were talking about, didn't do well, and he never really felt like anybody cared. And he wasn't making excuses. You know, he knows that he messed up, was held back a grade, very low reading level, made bad decisions going higher in high school, ended up in prison because he was with a group of people that committed a murder. He didn't do it, but he was an accomplice. Ended up in prison, solitary confinement. He's like, can you just get me something to read? And he's like, well, I can get you a Bible. And he read the Bible, very low reading level, but that just changed his life. And then he ended up doing some great things in prison. And then he wasn't supposed to get out as soon as he did, but he got out, then got his, he had to do a lot of remedial work, got his bachelor's. Now he's working on his master's. Just very inspirational. But something he said that I highlighted was, there's nothing that kills your witness more than a bad attitude. You can make people feel like a blessing or a burden. So he realizes that some students might be more difficult to love, but it's incumbent on everybody to try to make them all feel like a blessing and not a burden. That one really inspired me. But then I took a lot of the classes. Sandy mentioned vaping. That was disturbing on many levels. We went to one also called Decisions. It wasn't really that inspirational, but I liked the process, which had the little clickers, which made it fun because they would throw out a scenario. Is this a board decision, a superintendent decision, a joint decision? And you could choose it. And then you could see on the screen, 10% chose A, 30% chose B. And it just made me think how in classrooms, how things like that make it so much more engaging for students, because I was more engaged because I wasn't just sitting there listening to somebody talk like I'm doing now. So I'm going to end it, but it was a good conference, a lot of repetition, but I personally need repetition to remember things. So it's always good for me. So I feel like it was another productive year.
Okay, thanks, Cheryl. So I attended on Friday. You want to
Can
add
I just
something?
add something real quick? I have to just honestly say too, one of the things I really enjoyed is getting to know the administration over here on a more personal level. And so I really enjoyed that. So we're building relationships and stuff. So I really enjoyed that in the weekend too. So
Great. Agreed. So on Friday, I attended an all-day class on the role of the board president. As Janine said, a little late for that, isn't it? But anyway, so no, but it was a good session, and I think we already implement a lot of the best practices in terms of board evaluation that we do. You pick up a lot of things from the other people in the class and the comments and the questions. And so I would say one of the things I took out of that, away from that, is that we're operating pretty effectively as a board right now. And so I was very pleased with that. But I did pick up a few things that we can talk about. That maybe, one, for example, was including our annual agenda in every board packet, so you can kind of see what's coming on the horizon. If like this month we have the levy, we know when we're going to have the the annual budget. When are we going to get curriculum updates? Kind of as we've staggered the schedule, policy updates, et cetera. So that might be something that we can implement. And then on Saturday, agreed that Matt Mayberry, it was right? Was a very inspirational speaker. And one of the things I really liked what he said was, and he kind of talked about this because he was hanging around the wrong crowd when he was in high school, but he said, you are who you hang around with. And whether you're 16 or you're 60, if you think about it, and I think it's, something, especially with our children in the district, always think about that you are who you hang around with. And if you're hanging around the wrong crowd, you're going to be in the, and so we want to, encourage people to make the choices wisely with friends, et cetera. So that was very good. And then on Saturday, I attended the delegate assembly, which IASB is a lobbying organization for the school districts. And so they have a number of resolutions on their slate, and you go in and you vote that, to accept or reject those resolutions. So I think there was 440 approximate delegates in the assembly. And I think the most interesting thing for me personally coming out of that was the difference in the urban, upstate Chicago area school districts versus the downstate districts. and they have very different needs in terms of security. You know, can they afford a school resource officer or can't they? They would like, you know, because maybe the sheriff is so far away, they'd like the ability to have school personnel be armed. Suburban school districts don't want that. So just hearing that discussion and that debate, and, you know, that isn't deciding it for the state, but it is deciding, you know, what they would, our IASB as a lobbying organization, what they would promote, you know, so, and I have 30 seconds. So, and then the last one I attended was the one on school bonds. And I did learn quite a bit there that knowledge that I've already implemented or, you know, been able to take advantage of in our finance committee session. So all in all, yes, we're back there taking notes. But I would just say thank you for all your comments. I think going to Triple I is an efficient way for us to use our professional development dollars. And so hopefully we can continue to do that. So.
May I add one comment?
Sure.
As you know, at these sessions, not just for school board members, but certainly superintendents and executive assistants. So I wanted to make a comment that our executive assistant, Ms. Tillman over here, was asked to present at the roundtable for the executive assistants. So she invited me to come as well. And so we presented as a team, presenting about the relationships of the superintendents with executive assistants. So thank you for inviting me. It was a very pleasurable time. And then we also had our administrators present there as well.
We'd all shown up if we knew.
You know,
We were rooted you on. All righty then.
Okay, well, thanks for that. Okay, next up is our business meeting. Before we get a motion on the consent agenda, do any board members would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Are you? But you're okay with the consent agenda?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so, okay. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We're good to go. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish?
Aye.
Mrs. Walters?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mr. Albrecht?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next up is action reports. First up, we heard the presentation on the 2019 tax levy earlier this evening. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution for the 2019 tax levy?
Moved.
Is there any discussion? Further discussion? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Walters?
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mr. Albrecht?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next up is human resources. Can I have a motion to approve the personnel report, including certified staff leave of absence, return from leave of absence and resignation, and educational support staff employment, leave of absence, resignation, return from leave of absence, reassignment, resignation, and dismissal?
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions on the personnel report? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish?
Aye.
Mrs. Walters?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mr. Albrecht?
Aye. Motion carries. Next up, we have an item superintendent. Do you want to bring forth a resolution? Or do you want it?
Well, as the board members know, just recently, the University Park contacted us to sign a petition regarding some of the water issues that were out there. At the consultation with our trainings, they advised us to do that the resolution instead for that. So the resolution is included in the board packet.
So the University Park citizens there have a petition routing to go in front of the Illinois Commerce Commission, correct?
Yes.
And in lieu of us, since we're not really a resident as a body of University Park, in lieu of that, we're doing a resolution. Okay. Can I have a motion to adopt the resolution supporting the residents of University Park, Illinois, before the Illinois Commerce Commission?
Second.
In on that one.
Can I ask a question before we move?
Yeah,
ahead?
we'll have some, I want some discussion, or you want it?
Okay. I thought it had to be read out. I thought all resolutions have to be read out prior to moving. Is that Terry probably would know that a little better.
Yeah. I'll, yes, they are supposed to be read out loud.
Do you have a copy? Because it's not in the board
No,
packet on here.
I didn't see it.
Maybe we can have, should be in the first signature that I saw. Here it is. Here it is.
Yeah, because I just have the signature page, I think, in here. Yeah.
And I think, is it the secretary that reads it out? Because I'm just saying.
I don't believe it. We have it here.
We have it done.
I'm just trying to go by the letter of the law. I think it's the secretary. Might have to, and she's the one that's pretty much saying that she's.
Mr. Brown, that it would be your desire. You'd be more
I'm
than
just
happy
trying.
to make
I'm
it happen.
just- Go ahead, Madam Secretary.
You have the same thing on this one? All right, so I'm starting here. Right? All that legalese.
Yes, all the whereases.
You want me to read it out?
No. Okay. Resolution supporting the residents of University Park, Illinois before the Illinois Commerce Commission. Whereas the Board of Education of Crete Monee Community Unit School District 201U, the board, is a publicly elected Board of Education which operates and controls public elementary, middle, and high schools within its jurisdictional boundaries. And whereas part of the jurisdictional boundaries of Crete Monee Community Unit School District 201U includes University Park, Illinois, and whereas the students, parents, and community members of University Park, Illinois, the residents, are committed educational partners of the Board of Education and for whom the Board of Education has a vested interest in the health and safety thereof, and whereas the Board of Education has been made aware of concerns raised by the residents that the water supply to the residents had been contaminated by lead due to a chemical Aqua Illinois had added to the water system, and which impeded the residents' ability to use and consume the water provided. And whereas the Board of Education has been made aware from the residents that Aqua Illinois has proceeded to charge them for the contaminated water and requested that they increase water usage in order to accelerate treatment of the water. And whereas the Board of Education supports the petition of the residents to the Illinois Commerce Commission and further supports the request of the residents for the Illinois Commerce Commission to provide equitable relief by ordering Aqua Illinois to cease billing the residents for water and sewer charges incurred since June 2019, and to reimburse the residents for any bills incurred during any time period wherein contaminated water was provided by Aqua Illinois. Now, therefore, be it resolved as follows. Section 1. The foregoing recitals are incorporated into and made part of this resolution. Section 2. The Board of Education formally indicates its support of the residents in its plea before the Illinois Commerce Commission through the adoption of this resolution. Section 3. The Board of Education directs its superintendent to have this resolution filed with the Illinois Commerce Commission with respect to any action currently pending before it involving Aqua, Illinois and University Park, Illinois. Section 4, this resolution shall be in full force and effect immediately upon its adoption. All prior resolutions or portions thereof which are inconsistent or in conflict with the terms of this resolution are hereby repealed. Now, do I have to read that number with the bonus difference?
No. Okay. Thank you very much,
My
Madam
pleasure,
Secretary.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Excellent
Thank you,
job.
Mr. Brown, thank you for the point of order.
We are a board. One team.
Do we have a second? Ms. Brown, Ms. Mitchell, Ms. Mitchell
Second.
Okay. Now
moved. Okay. Any discussion?
No, the only thing I'd like to say is I'm glad we should support it because we're a vested interest with the two schools in University Park.
Yeah.
So standing behind them is for sure.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I think this is something we definitely should be behind and support the residents of University Park, who this has been traumatic for them and it's impacted our two schools in the district. That said, I think we as a body, my personal opinion is we should be very judicious with the resolutions that we support, and that, you know, we ought to be handling the business of our affairs. And so that's just my, I'm kind of being on the record for future purposes that we're not going to just accept every resolution that might come before us. And so anyway, my
Yeah,
thought.
I think each case is, will be its own instance, but in this one, we're vested for sure with
Yes.
the community.
Agreed. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruth?
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish?
Aye.
Mrs. Walters?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mr. Albrecht?
Aye. Motion carries. We'll need to sign that.
Done.
They're done. Okay. Tonight.
Mr. Brown reminded me to do that before the meeting.
Okay. Is there any old business?
Well, I'd like to do another shout out. You know, I'm into these shout outs. So we did the committee of the whole ones, but tonight we had I believe it was only the middle school choir. I didn't see any high school people. Did I miss them?
They're mingled together.
Were there a few in there? I didn't see them. So I would just like to give a shout out to both of those schools for coming here, entertaining us, doing a great job. Mr. Moore, and I'm sorry I don't know the new director's name at the middle school, but it was fabulous to see them and to be greeted by them and for our community members to see them. So shout out to them for the holiday entertainment.
I have a warm fuzzy.
Okay.
I was just sitting here and I often think about what we do and why we do what we do. And when I was in the conference, I thought about this young man, and I just want to share this because my heart is in it. As a school district in my prior life of running a program in University Park, there's a young man that came through this school district. And when he became successful as a professional football player, he didn't invite the politicians to his, help me out, what they call it?
Signing?
To his signing. But he did invite the people that made a difference in his life. And I was there. And I was a person that had a lien on my house in order to provide a program in University Park for the kids to play football and be cheerleaders. And at the time, they were $7,000 in debt. And I think I said this in my interview, now I'm saying it again. But I heard this young man's story on one of the CPSN stations, and he talked about growing up in University Park on a side of University Park that's not necessarily acceptable, and to live on a part. And as he was walking through, not being able to afford to go in a program, and men embraced him after seeing him playing on a corner and asked him would he like to play ball, and he said yes, and they brought him and his brothers into the program. But he said it was just something that he dreamed about, because he didn't realize as he was walking that there was another side to University Park that had houses and children playing, and that they played in programs, and that there were different things for them to do. And I like to think that as this person honed his craft, he never forgot about the people along the way that made a difference, including the school district. And that would be by way of Laquan Treadwell. And to know that when we're sitting here and the decisions that we make are all clued in to those children, that when we make decisions up here, we make a difference in their lives. And so as they're walking from one level of their lives to the next, they will always remember, and they will always reach back and give back. And I know he comes through here several times as well. But just to be mindful, and the reason I say this is because of the workshop that I was in the conference, and it stayed on my heart. And even as I was sitting here today, I was still thinking about that young man, knowing him all his life and never realizing that that was his opinion of where he lived. He never knew that there were better houses on the other side of University Park. So to the school district, thank you for making a difference in that young man's life. And sitting at his
Signing.
signing, you know, and as difficult as it was to keep that program in that community, I looked at a coach and I said, this here is what it was all about. If we had not been there, and if we had not saved the program, the same things that we do in the school system, we would not have these success stories to tell. So thank you for allowing me the warm fuzzy in this season of hope and giving.
Thank you, Brenda. Well said. So any other old business? Okay. How about any new business? So. Yeah. And we can put the hat away for another year.
Wait till next year.
Okay. Okay. Okay, we do have a need to go into closed session tonight. There'll be no action taken after closed session. So we're close to the end. So can I have a motion to move to closed session for the purpose of discussing the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired?
So moved.
Okay. Okay, ready? Okay.
I did. I actually first did it, but I gave it to Sandy.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mrs. Root,
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish,
Mr. Swallow says aye.
Mrs. Walters,
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye, Mr. Albrecht.
Aye. We are enclosed. No, we need to go to the other room because the Okay, we are now in closed session. We will have no action items after closed session. The only item we'll have is to adjourn. And we're going to remain in this room for a closed session, so we're going to need to shut down the camera and audio. Thank you.